Hi friends, this is Michael Golzmane. I want to talk to you a little bit about, in this video, using spiritual clearing technologies for the releasing of physical body conditions. So if you have found your way to this video, it's very likely that you have some notion or belief that spiritual techniques and strategies can be used to help alleviate not only the symptoms but the origins of dis-ease or challenges that we're feeling in the physical body. I want to first of all tell you this is not meant to be medical advice, and I'm not at all trying to come into the way of your connection to the proper and right licensed medical facilitation for you. However, I'm trying to add a little bit of a spiritual perspective from my background to what might be useful to you in the healing of spiritual conditions. So a lot of people come to me who are having pain in the physical body, or having diseases. They have diagnoses, for instance, or they suspect some condition is wrong, or they're just feeling out of balance in some way, whether they consciously totally know what the issue is or not. I want to take a step backwards for a minute into the realm of how the physical body has gotten here and how the physical conditions that we call diseases may have gotten here. It is the basic assumption and a real knowing that I have come to terms with in the course of my spiritual clearing work that life is good, that God is good, that Spirit is good. Not only is that an attribute of those names I've just used, it is the only thing happening with them. Not only is like, okay, well, God's sort of good, yeah, okay, that's nice, or Spirit's kind of good, yeah. We have a way of saying, well, it's all good, or that dinner I had last night, yeah, that was good, But this is a different quality. We're talking about Spirit as good, the essence of all good. That where we come from, what has been the creative force that is continually sustaining and creating our physical bodies and our physical realities, is the state of simply all good. It says this in the first chapter of Genesis, actually in the Old Testament, where it says that God looked at what he had created and it was good. This is a very deep spiritual principle, that God and good are basically the same word. It's just a little matter of an extra O in that word good. So good is what God is doing. Health and vitality is how that good is expressed into the physical body. So why is it that we may not be experiencing that total vitality and good right now? Well, this can get down to, from a spiritual level, this can get down to the fact that we have gotten out of sync with that divine perfection and harmony at some level. Now, this is not necessarily, first of all, this is not a means to say there should be blame or shame for you. If you were only more spiritual right now, you would be not having this condition. People use this type of principle of divine good and divine health and perfection to shame people sometimes. It's not at all where I'm coming to from this, because this is all an unfolding for each one of us. We're always unfolding into how can we release more into this natural state of health and healing even more, even if we do not have a diagnosed dis-ease or some particular painful symptom right now. So we may be anywhere along this spectrum, but we're always asking, how can we surrender and release and clear more into that divine presence? So somewhere along the way, we have gotten out of sync somehow with the harmony that is the fundamental undergirding of what is good in our bodies. I use this analogy oftentimes to people. I'm saying that you may have a pain in your toe right now, or a pain in your knee, or you may have some other condition going on. But if 99.9% of who you are, who your physical body is, and who you are in a holistic, multidimensional person, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, was not in sync and absolutely flowing and allowing the perfection, the harmony of the universe right now, you would be dead. You could not be sustained. You would not be able to take a breath. Your heart would not be able to beat. You would not be able to have your trillions of cells eliminating toxins regularly from your body right now, and doing all of this simultaneously without you having to think about it. So in this moment, 99.999% of you, at the very least, is already in harmony and sync with the universe, though it's very easy for us to sometimes focus on, this is my symptom, this is my challenge, and therefore I'm unwell. Well, no, most of you is well. And there may be a little bit of you that's gotten out of the way. So what is the origin of that issue? Well, in my experience working with people around physical health conditions of various levels of severity, I have found that ultimately physical dis-ease comes from non-physical misalignment. Ultimately, I'm not saying that the direct cause in the moment may not be something physical that we can point ourselves to. For instance, if we have a pain in our knee, we might have fallen last week. And we say, well, what is this crazy guy on the internet talking about? Of course my pain in my knee is from the fact that I've fallen. But why did you fall? There's always a reason. Everything always happens for a reason, whether or not we're consciously aware of it or not. Why do seeming accidents or challenges or falls happen to some people but not others? And I would say that all of this gets back to a place of how aligned are we spiritually with attracting our source, with attracting and courting that divine presence that is only good. When we're in total rapport and harmony with that, nothing bad happens to us. It's a very deep spiritual principle. Nothing bad happens to us. Now, there may still be challenges on the surface level that occur, but it's not because we've gotten out of alignment. This is a deep spiritual principle to remember. So, in my experience, and this is also quoting a New Testament biblical principle, that which appears has not come from that which is seen. Basically, it says in the New Testament, which means that nothing that we see in our manifest reality has come from manifest reality. It's always come from the unseen world. I find, more or less all the time, that ultimately the physical dis-ease processes we have come from unprocessed, unhealed, undealt with, and repressed and suppressed emotional traumas that we have experienced in this lifetime and in previous lifetimes. Realizing that there's a whole history to our soul that is not explainable by just our physical birth and what has happened to us subconsciously or consciously since this physical birth. We have to understand there is a large history to the soul, a very, very long history. There's an infinite history of the soul. And it is within our power, however we define that in our own minds, it's within our power to go back and work with the power of spirit now to clear up the energy, clear up all the stuff that hasn't been cleared up for us. Because ultimately, the emotional body, our emotions are unhealed, unprocessed emotions, is sitting right outside the physical body. It's the next layer, less dense than the physical body. It's the first sort of layer and level of the non-physical and the spiritual bodies. If you could imagine our energy fields surrounding the physical body, the emotional body is very close to the physical body. And what happens is as emotions that are unprocessed, unhealed, so it's like anger, it's resentment, it's deep trauma and rage, we don't deal with them in the moment oftentimes, they begin to coagulate, they begin to harden, they begin to densify, they begin to restrict the flow of energy in our energy field from spirit into our present moment reality. They begin to act as a filter, sort of a bidirectional filter of reality. If we have a large amount of, we all know this in many people probably that we know, if people are vibrating they have a lot of unhealed, unprocessed anger, for instance, which is one of the prime indicators of dis-ease and accidents and challenges and lack of money and all sorts of things that can happen long term. People do not necessarily process the anger in the moment in which it happens, so it begins to hang out with them. It begins to repress. It begins to go underneath the surface of their conscious attention. This is our body's way of coping. We place pain, whether it's emotional or physical, below conscious attention as much as possible over the course of time. And then it begins to act as a point of attraction. They attract more people who are angry, more people who are going to make them feel angry. It also begins to limit their ability to actually get out of that shell that's being created around them of anger. It makes it more difficult for them to manifest, to connect out with life, and to be able to move forward into life in a positive way in all different dimensions, because it's restricting the energy field. So ultimately, this is a benevolent process. This idea of we attract what we vibrate to is ultimately a benevolent process, because it's the universe's way, God's way, Spirit's way, of helping us to master ourselves, helping us to ultimately take responsibility for what we're vibrating to, and to say, you know what, this anger isn't serving me any longer. As a matter of fact, it's probably caused this dis-ease process. It's causing dysfunction, disease, challenges in my life in all sorts of different ways. I have to go through this process of forgiveness and of release and of clearing. So I find ultimately unprocessed, unhealed emotional issues that we have bonded ourselves to, we have attached ourselves to, often subconsciously and throughout the entire history of our soul, this begins to densify. The non-physical begins to densify, depending on what the emotion is or depending on what the situation was that created it. It densifies as inflammation, it can densify as cancers, it can densify as other types of conditions in the body that are more subtle. Now you'll say, well, cause of inflammation is something in the physical. It's eating the standard American diet, for instance, or it's eating inflammatory foods. And that is also true. But what's causing someone to do that? What's causing someone who has type 2 diabetes to eat tons of sugar and no minerals in their diet and to develop that, whereas someone else may not develop it? So you see how we tend to respond and react to what our vibration is. And once we clear that, we begin to find, hey, my actions, my feelings, my life, and my openness to the process of attracting even other types of holistic modalities into my life, the willingness to heal, this begins to come online. I can't tell you how many people I work with who say, oh, I want to feel better, which is what people often say when they want to be out of a certain symptomology. But you check in with their souls and their spirit and even with their conscious wording and their languaging around it, and they are in resistance highly often to being willing to do what it takes to get better. A wonderful holistic medical doctor named Gabriel Cousins has once said, you've got to love yourself enough to want to heal yourself. If you don't love yourself enough to want you to heal yourself, you're not going to heal yourself no matter what possibilities there are out there, no matter who has discovered a cure to any condition out there. You're not necessarily going to attract it, and it may not be effective for you until you love yourself enough. This is basically, he's saying, you have to be willing, you have to want to, you have to do the inner work. I'm saying here, spiritual clearing work is a huge component to healing the physical body, because we begin to go into what are all the things we've repressed, what are all the things we've suppressed, what are all the past life memories that we're not even consciously aware of now, what are all the traumas that are affecting us right now. Spirit knows what these things are, and a skilled practitioner can help to facilitate working with spirit, working with your own energy field, to be able to discover how to move your soul into a place of willingness, to allowing, to flow, to letting go. You've heard this phrase, letting go and letting God. It's what it's all about. Letting go and letting God is what healing is all about. Spirit, I go back to this point I made a few minutes ago. Spirit is always good, is the field of all good, the field of all possibilities. There are no dead ends in spirit. There is nothing that is incurable in spirit. But are we willing to open ourselves to that possibility? Are we willing to open ourselves to the possibility of letting go of what no longer serves us? Letting go, letting God come in and do its work in, through, and as us, reigniting, revivifying the tissues, the cells of the body, releasing the stored cellular memories, helping us to open to infinite possibilities. I want to assure you that anyone else who has been released and healed of any condition on this earth plane, and people have been healed of every condition at every stage, means that so can you. That possibility is there. Even if it's an unknown origin of how it happened, the possibility has been established in consciousness for you, and everything can be healed. It's a matter of willingness and openness to the process. Now, further beyond the realms of spiritual clearing, when you are more in alignment with willingness and clearing and openness and letting God be God in your own experience and body, then you naturally find synchronicities begin to occur more in your life. You tend to attract certain practitioners, certain healing modalities. You find the money begins to be attracted to you to be able to do that, and you put the whole story together, and using the various different modalities and practitioners, you begin to uncode and go into your own deep, unique healing process and begin to feel better and better in the process as you release more into spirit and you begin to get back into alignment with 100% of your being absolutely in rapport with spirit, allowing spirit, letting go and letting God. That's what it's really all about. And then spirit, through all spirit's different methods, individual people, through inner spiritual realizations and clearings, through your own very life, and through, yes, through medical doctors. It can absolutely happen through that method. And you will know which are the right people to work with, what are the right techniques to work with. You'll be able to sort that out rather than coming through disease from a place of fear. You'll begin to know, this is right for me, this is not right for me, this is my path, this is how I'm going to move forward. Everything and anything can be healed. And someone might be saying, well, what about people who have incurable conditions, or what about people who've been born a certain way, or they have certain disfigurements or whatever? It is ultimately important to realize that we are not our physical bodies in this limited reality. Our physical bodies will ultimately die. We will not have our physical bodies forever. So the most important things in healing are not simply the cessation of symptoms in the physical bodies. Ultimately, the most important aspects of healing are our own realization and openness to our divine, true spiritual nature. People who have been born without a certain limb or not. Can that limb regrow? Well, I don't know. Probably not. Maybe not. Maybe it could. I don't know. But ultimately, the most important thing here is not necessarily the cessation of some problem in the physical. It's the eternal. It's the development of our soul. It's the realization of our oneness with Spirit. And that is something that we all can engage with. That is a part of our healing process we can all participate in. And that provides eternal rewards for the evolution of our soul. We can still accomplish our divine soul's purpose, no matter what the physical body readings and statistics say at any given moment. So I've kind of laid out for you in this video a little bit of my perspective and experience on the healing of the physical body. To just boil it down, know that everything is possible. Know that just with whatever diagnosis or whatever condition you are told you have, this is not necessarily the end point of the story. There is infinite possibility in Spirit. People have been cured of every condition in every possible stage of every condition. And if that is possible for them, it is possible for you also. And ultimately, doing the inner work, releasing, doing the spiritual clearing work, having Spirit go in and clear the programs, the blocks to even being willing. I find many people are willing to be willing, but they're not really at that point where their soul has actually done enough clearing yet to be willing in the process. So we have to do clearing work on that. The process of releasing into Spirit, releasing old, unprocessed, unhealed issues will only improve your life, no matter how old you are, no matter what stage you are at any particular condition. Ultimately, it is letting go and letting God, letting that grace of Spirit fill you, and accomplishing the divine purpose of your soul. This is really the purpose of the physical vehicle. It's the purpose of incarnation. Soul evolution, accomplishing your purpose in service to others. And you can do that, absolutely can do that, any age, any condition. And you will find that your perspective, your attitude, and yes, the feelings in the physical body will begin to shift and change as you dive deeply into the practice of releasing, of clearing, of letting go and letting God. I'm sure what I've said today has probably stirred up some amount of questions for you, and I encourage you to click below this video, click onto my website, clearingconnect.com, drop me a note. I'm happy to answer questions about your specific condition, if I can check in with Spirit, and get some answers for you and talk about the possibilities of spiritual clearing and healing for you. I invite you to enter into a conversation and just be encouraged, know that anything is possible for you. So friends, thanks for watching this video. I'm Michael Golzmane. Looking forward to hearing from you soon. Peace and blessings.